It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right. Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Appreciate you joining with us. Thank you. There are a number of new folks I see joining with us today on our website. We are streaming our show live there for those of you that are outside of local geographic area. Thanks for joining with us. Appreciate you. We're going to tackle 4 different topics today, the start of which is going to be the presidential lies. You know, the news that's out about Obamacare and the fact that the president deftly but obviously lied is the talk of the media. There is actually some mainstream media that is holding the president at least somewhat accountable. However, I've noticed that there are a lot of people that are, while they can't deny that it's occurred, they're giving him a pass, shall we say, by utilizing language that any critical thinker will look at and say, wow, wait a minute, stop right there. This is completely unacceptable. So a good example, and I'll get into a couple of examples about that. There was an article out there by Ron Fournier, which I find to be especially disturbing, from the National Journal. Anyway, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Our second topic will be defrauding America. The amount of fraud that is enveloped in the entitlement programs in the United States of America is so stunning, ladies and gentlemen. I watched an episode last night with John Stossel on Fox News where he was interviewed by Bill O'Reilly. And, you know, a lot of you know that I got a problem with some of the stuff that Bill O'Reilly talks about. But John Stossel is a pretty good investigator in terms of digging up some of the dirt that's going on in there. And he's of a relatively libertarian, I should say, mindset. And so I'm going to play you that episode. It's about 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes, and I think it's worthwhile for you to hear. In addition to that, our third topic is going to be nationalizing America. And the question there is, do we see totalitarianism in sight? There's an article out in reference to the student loan debt that is currently being held by the federal government. You know, since Barack Obama nationalized the student loan program, and now, of course, one has to arguably admit that he has nationalized the healthcare system. Although the liberal and progressives out there will scream bloody murder when they hear that, I don't really care. You can't deny where we're headed. But in this case, he's nationalized the student loan issue so that the government is the only one, the federal government is the only one who can lend student loans. And, folks, it's up 463% under Obama. It went from $120 billion to $675 billion. We're on the hook for that as taxpayers, number one. And number two, again, it is a free market, free enterprise issue. There is only one lender of resort to go to, not lender of last resort, only one lender, period, to go to get student loans. And when we look at things like what transpired with the IRS and this kind of cronyism and special, I mean, will students be denied as we move forward a student loan because they have the wrong political viewpoint? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Our fourth and final topic will be Common Core. And there's a couple of great articles out about Common Core, one in the Wall Street Journal, one in the New American, about how they are trying to couch and pitch this as a state-led initiative. We're going to talk about that because it is anything but. And I tell you right now, 46 states out of 50 have adopted Common Core. So the odds are very high that your state is one of those. We're going to talk a little bit about that and understand a little bit about the issues of what Common Core is and who's behind it, because I think a lot of people hear Common Core, but they really don't understand it. So we're going to try to get into a little bit of that. Okay, if you'd like to call in on our hotline, if you're watching live and you'd like to call in, you're welcome to do so. The telephone number is area code 417-204-5141. That's 417-204-5141. For those of you who are listening to this on podcast, the entire show will be in one single podcast. I will not break it up into segments for you. Okay, so let's start and let's tackle our first topic here. The issue of the president's lying. And I got to tell you, this is a really serious and has very serious implications for the nation. What we're hearing is the papers that are out there that have been traditional supporters, the mainstream ministry of propaganda, if you will, are at this point unable to any longer contain the truth. In other words, there's just no way that they can shift and twist the language to suit their arguments and positions any longer, because they are no longer. I mean, it's so obvious to everyone what the lie was because it was caught so many times on tape. I've published on our website and on our Facebook page a number of the quotes that directly came from his mouth, and I got to tell you, folks, there's just no way to parse this any other way. You have to admit that what he was doing was a complete and utter falsification of the truth. And he knew it back in 2010. And his aides and his staff have admitted that they knew it. They actually had discussions to determine how far they wanted to go in public speaking engagements. And you know what? You cannot deny what all of the public record shows and exposes. And so even the sycophantic ministry of propaganda has to get out there and say, just for credibility's sake, yeah, he misrepresented the truth. Or in the New York Times case, misspoke. Well, with all due respect, you don't misspeak 29 times on videotape with emphatic statements like, no one can take that away from you. I mean, let's be honest, folks. That is not a statement that was made as an off-the-cuff remark that was a slip of the tongue or any other type of argument. You cannot make those assumptions, and you cannot get away with that kind of misrepresentation. The simple truth is that he knew what he was talking about, and he knew exactly what he was saying. And anyone who would want to argue the position is arguing against reality. So, what we need to do is take a look at what some of these people are saying. There's an article out there in the National Review. And, you know, this one's pretty good, actually, but I find some trouble with all of these. There's one out there by Ron Fournier in the National Journal. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I will put the links to these stories in the actual description section, so you can find these stories for yourself. That was a request from listeners, and I've been doing it. Any YouTube videos that you watch of us or me, you can find a link to the actual stories that I'm addressing or utilizing as fodder, if you will. So, okay, Fournier, by the way, used to be an ex-legislator. And so he comes out and he says it might seem impossible Obama could do more to harm his credibility. And I agree with the vast majority of this article. In fact, he says in a speech Monday night to his political team, Obama said, now if you have or had one of these plans before the Affordable Care Act came into law, and you really like that plan, what we said was you can keep it if it hasn't changed since the law passed. Fournier's response to that is absolutely no. That's not what the Obama administration said. What it did say, and this is an actual quote, given to the American Medical Association in June of 2009, which was actually before the passage of the act, okay? That means, this is President Obama speaking, that means that no matter how we reform health care, we will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period. No one will take it away no matter what. Then he made a second statement after the bill was signed in April of 2010, in Portland, Oregon, and he said, if you like your insurance plan, you will keep it. No one will be able to take that away from you. It hasn't happened yet. It won't happen in the future. Okay. So with those two verbatim statements out of the horse's mouth out there into the public sphere, there is no deniability to the issue. Even the Washington Post, which is typically a more left-leaning paper, gave the 4 Pinocchios, which is how they rate lies, and there's only 4. So when you get 4, you're pretty much construed to be an absolute liar. Here's my problem with this, and this is where the critical thinking skills for each of you will come in. Towards the tail end of this story, he talks about the fact that they reinvented history, and they actually had discussions because they were afraid that the public wouldn't understand the issue, and they basically agreed in advance that they were going to misrepresent the facts. Okay, but here's where the problem is. The last paragraph of this story, this is where it all goes south. On history, and this is Ron Fournier speaking now, or writing. On history's scale of deception, this one leaves a light footprint. Worse lies have been told by worse presidents, leading to more severe consequences. And you could argue that withholding a caveat is more a sin of omission. But this president is toying with a fragile commodity, his credibility. Once Americans stop believing in Obama, they will stop listening to him, they won't trust government to manage health care, and they will wonder what happened to the reform-minded leader who promised never to lie to them. Okay, let's stop right there. The problem is that what he's doing is he is using an age-old tactic, which is to admit the fault, but then limit the damage as a result of that by saying, but it's really not that big a deal. I agree with the entire article, except for that last paragraph, because while he admits the obvious and details the, quote, long train of abuses related to this monstrosity called Obamacare, the author then goes around and tries to soft-pedal the implication that leaves the reader with the impression that, well, it's all okay then, because other presidents have done worse. Okay, that's a problem in and of itself. Because, you can't sit there and say, because other presidents have done worse, that's like drawing the conclusion that you can say it's okay because someone else has done a worse thing, and you're really basically arguing that because someone else has done something bad, you can point to that and use that as an excuse for why your bad behavior is okay. So here's my point. Fournier comes on very strong, rightly so. But then he drops the ball at the end of the argument or at the end of the article, offering, a getaway, because he just spent the last 9 paragraphs trapping the rat, right? But then he lets it walk away unscathed. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say you need to read articles and educate yourself, utilizing critical thinking skills. You must. It's absolutely imperative that you understand what that author is attempting to impart. In other words, he's giving you information. And in this article, he gives you lots of information and all the information that you need in order to create, for all intents and purposes, an informed decision about the behavior, right? But what you have to recognize is not only what they're actually giving you factually, but the implications of what they're saying. And bias comes in all sorts of forms. This is an easy exercise for anyone who is a student of critical thinking. Because if you read this, you'll understand exactly what that means. Worse lies have been told by worse presidents, leading to more severe consequences. That you could argue that withholding a caveat is more a sin of omission? Hold on, stop right there. This was a lie of commission, not a lie of omission. And, if you're just casually reading this, you may not pick that up. That's why I tell you it's so critically important for you to understand and recognize when you are being misled. The propaganda aspect is interleaved, and it's not done so in an obvious way. The progressives and the liberals in many cases will. But when you got a guy like Fournier, who allegedly comes from a position of conservatism or moderate conservatism, you got to be careful what you're reading. because this was a lie of commission, not a lie of omission. There's a big difference there. Fournier actually should and does know the difference. What this is nothing but a propaganda piece that's been submitted as excoriating on the issue, right, on the issue of the lie, but it wears a thin veil of acquiescence to a crime that arguably implies and qualifies this president for impeachment. Now, that's a bold and hard statement, and I'm going to back it up, and I'll tell you why. There are those who will say, well, wait a second, this doesn't carry the same weight as a Benghazi or a Fast and Furious. Nobody died. I beg to differ. The truth of the matter is, this is a far greater issue than you're giving it credibility for, if that's your argument. And the reason I say that is because when you utilize that argument, you're assuming, one, that the damage is already done and there won't be any more. That's a mistake. Number one, we're talking about a huge swath of our economy, and literally somewhere plus or minus 100 million Americans are going to be negatively affected by this. In other words, they're going to lose their insurance. They're going to have to re-sign up under the new plans. It's going to cost everybody a ton of money. And in the meantime, we don't know how many people are actually going to die, and I'll tell you why. We won't know that until we start seeing people who have lost their insurance but don't have new insurance to sign up for after January 1st or can no longer afford that insurance. And now they will be dropping off like flies because they have chronic health ailments that cannot survive without constant medical care and treatment. So this is the truth of the matter is that this is an absolute misrepresentation of the reality of the situation. And I don't want anybody to mistake that point. This is a lie of commission, and therefore it falls under the category of impeachable offenses. You know, we impeached President Bill Clinton for, lying about his personal sexcapades. Well, let me tell you something. The implications of this are far greater. And I got to tell you, there's other aspects of this that are even more important. No one's talking about the fact that here you have a modern law that is forcing you. This is a law now passed by Congress and approved by the Supreme Court, which is forcing you to abandon your Fourth Amendment right to privacy, number one, because you are forced under duress to submit an application. You're forced under the duress of law, police power of law. And so when an agency, or in this case, the HHS, or the nation, as an example, has a law that forces you under duress to submit this information, then you are first and foremost violating your own HIPAA prohibitions against and your own prohibitions against being able to be secure in your person and place, right? Secondarily, you're also being forced to violate and waive your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, because their warnings on their privacy documents say exactly that the information that you submit is, one, subject to review for auditing, law enforcement purposes, and that you're submitting under the penalty of perjury. So right off the bat, you've got one law, a modern law, that tries to go back and change the status of your unalienable laws that are given to you as natural law by God and nature. There's a problem with that. And that is a dichotomy that cannot be resolved except by resorting back to the precedent document of the Constitution. That's where the problem lies. That's why this matters. This is more than just a lie. It's a lie which is effectively nationalizing 1/6 of our economy. It is going to change forever and eternally the relationship between the citizen and the government. It is a violation of their own HIPAA standards against your privacy. It's a violation of your Fourth Amendment right, your Fifth Amendment right. It's also a violation of the Sherman Act, where you are essentially being forced into a non-competitive antitrust violation situation. There's no denying it. You have your choice has been taken away. They can call this competition all they want, but you can call a rabbit a dog, but it doesn't make it a dog. So the truth of the matter is, for those of you who are out there paying attention, you can find this article on the nationalreview.com. It's called If You Can let me just find what it's called. It's on the National Review, and it says, if I like it, you can keep it. In other words, it's a twist on the play of if you want it, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. It says, if I like it, you can keep it. Right? It's a play on words on the National Review. This is the National Review website. It's nationalreview.com. Second one is the National Journal. I know that gets confusing for you for a moment, but it's the National Journal, and this one is entitled Lying About Lies, Why Credibility Matters to Obama. And I even got to take offense to the tone of this the subject matter here, because why credibility matters to Obama? This isn't a function of credibility. This is a function of the president lied to the nation in an attempt to falsify the impression that people had, which changed the entire outcome of a national election. Ladies and gentlemen, the implications of that are huge, and I have to tell you, this is an impeachable offense. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to pick up Defrauding America is all lost under entitlement fraud. This is a serious problem, ladies and gentlemen, and, I'm going to play you a clip from O'Reilly interviewing John Stossel the other day, which was very, very, very eye-opening. In addition to that, excuse me, if you are listening to this via podcast, this will play straight through. Just wait through the break. We'll be right back. If you are watching us on our website streaming live, just hang on a moment. After the break, I pause the video, and it'll come right back on. In about 1 minute, just hit the play button, and you'll have it back live. Okay, you're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm the host here, and you're certainly welcome to find us on all of our web address locations. You can find us at americasvoicenow.org. That's our website. We've got all kinds of articles and stories posted up there. We've got videos of every episode that we do, and we'll shortly have downloadable podcasts posted up there as well. You can find us on Facebook.com/America's Voice Now. We ask that you like that page because it helps us to share our message not only with you, but those in your circle of influence. And in addition to that, you can also find this and every other program that we do on video on YouTube, where you can, and you can also find the podcast on YouTube. That can be found by going to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Stick with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we will return in just a moment.